storage.
Can you show me your card for that or what? Or we can exchange
The brief that has been given for the session is provide you a brief overview of the energy storage project attenders in India. Speaking a little of what Techie has been up to in the recent past and what we are planning way ahead. Perhaps this will help you get an overview of what the scenario is on. I mean, let me begin with by saying that maybe 3 or 4 years ago when we were saying that it is the dawn of energy storage in the country, I think we are at a place where we can safely say that the sun has risen, and that is evident in the fact that in the recent past, a lot of tenders have been forthcoming from Techie, but also from other agencies in the country, and we are glad that the trend has been set. A lot of work has gone behind in terms of putting together the offtake framework, the policy framework, the kind of offtake framework, what the utilities are looking for in terms of the utility wants to reach, what kind of price expectations they might have. So, I mean, you are aware that recently the bidding that Techie conducted for 500 megawatt, 1,000 megawatt hour standalone storage project has finally, the PSA for that has finally been signed. There were some glitches along the way. It's a learning curve because of the way that contract was structured with 30% of the offtake being guaranteed by Techie, another 30% by Grid India, and the remaining was the responsibility of the developer, that is JSW. So there were certain aspects in terms of signing of the PSA with Grid India. So that understanding has now been worked out, and that PPA has been signed, which is great news for the industry as a whole. And you see how, you know, in a span of just 1.5 years, the GeoWinner coming out, it's essentially the same structuring with certain tweaks to the tender conditions in terms of the offtake requirement, and that has seen, apart from the fact obviously that the price of energy storage has seen a very sharp downward trend. You see, you know, now the picture appears far more optimistic for everyone. I mean, for the planners like the CEA that has sort of painted a broad horizon of what kind of storage capacities that we are looking at. That is one part. But then let me also say that, you know, to be hopeful about the future is one thing, but to be sanguine about, you know, having already done something in the past, and that is another incomparable joy. So at Techie itself, we have recently commissioned the biggest grid-connected storage yet in the country, which is a 100 megawatt XPV solar project with 40 megawatt, 120 megawatt hour battery storage project. The nameplate capacity is around 152 megawatt hour. That is in the Rajnandgaon district of Chhattisgarh, and that is essentially sort of a plain and simple solar plus storage model, kind of a run-of-the-mill kind of thing. But that learning for an agency like Techie, that is primarily seen as the seeding agent for everything related to renewable in the country, that sort of sets a model that we wish to replicate going forward, and that is now what we have tried to bring forth in the form of a simple, the NIP that was published maybe in a couple of days. That's a simple solar plus storage model. So if you see the entire spectrum of offtake framework that have been forthcoming from Techie, at the one end is the simplicity in terms of where there is simple RE project with solar or wind or hybrid, and at the other end, the extreme end of it is what we have called the FDRE, the firm and dispatchable RE, where we exactly cater, work closely with the DISCOM and try and understand what exactly their needs are going forward, maybe 3 or 4 years down the line, and try to meet their load. And the entire idea is to match what they are looking for. And interestingly, we have had first out of bidding for the FDRE also, though we never specified that certain amount of storage has to be put as part of the project configuration. But the kind of bids we have received, when people have worked out their models, put together their configurations to supply that load curve, the model has thrown up good amount of storage, and that is something that is very interesting to see. So we have reached, it's interesting to see that from a point where we were sort of, may I say, skeptical about seeing storage as a cost adder, ultimately, dissuading DISCOMs from taking perhaps a little higher tariff, to actually now the project configuration incorporating storage as part of the solution. So that is also very interesting to see. Of course, bespoke solutions like the FDRE, I think should be expected to be a little more premium. But that idea is built into that framework because it takes away certain part of their of the DISCOM's obligation or reduces their obligation. So that when that cost also is taken into that equation, the tariff becomes much more interesting. And yes, some amount of walking through with the DISCOM would be necessary to help them see if it makes good sense for them to have an increased reliability of supply in terms of what they are looking for. So this is one aspect. But now with the solar plus storage that we have, the NIP for which has been published recently, that's very plain and simple vanilla. It's a solar project with 1 hour of battery. I mean, X by 2 for 2 hours. So essentially, for a 1200 megawatt, it's a 1200 megawatt hour of storage, and the battery is prescribed as simple. And perhaps we'll be looking at tariffs that are more palatable to the DISCOM, kind of creating different products that might be of interest to DISCOM. Apart from that, I'll also wish to let you know about another project that SECI itself has commissioned in Lakshadweep. So we were saying, from some very early times that at a time when storage is little costly, there were certain locations where it made much more sense. Remote locations like islands like Lakshadweep or Andaman, or remote locations in perhaps say Ladakh or those kinds of places. Perhaps where it might, you could have a more premium. I mean, so Lakshadweep SECI has also commissioned a 1.4 megawatt hour storage plus SCB project in Lakshadweep. And again, in the spirit of doing something and then replicating it, will be, very soon we'll also be bringing out similar projects for other four different islands of Lakshadweep. So that might be of interest to the industry. Those are premium locations, but also they make, difficult locations, but also, you could expect a little more, some premium there because of the location. And then there is another standalone storage project that is in the offering in Port Blair, Dollygunge, Andaman Nicobar Islands. That's a small grade, and there's some NSC had commissioned a solar project with some amount of storage earlier, but the grid is facing some problems, and that is where the electricity department requested us that we look for solutions like storage, and we have around 20 on in developer mode. It's a 20 megawatt hour standalone battery storage project for Andaman. That will have two parts. One for energy shifting, which is to help integrate the already solar power that's being generated in the grid. But there is a second part, which is perhaps another new initiative or another new service that might be of interest, which is a FR service, a fixed response service, I think the tender should be out, in the coming days. So that you would have a two-part solution with both with the different service requirements or different service expectations with different penalty structures. That is something that is very interesting in the coming days. Apart from that, of course, the peak power, the hybrid 6, the peak power tender that was concluded, I think, last year, that had mandated 1 hour of storage. The bidding for that has already been finalized, and those projects are also coming up with around 1 hour, minimum 1 hour of storage for every project. So we see the landscape. There is a constant. I mean, it happens with most industries where demand beats economic. The question of any kind of development is just a matter of time. So that happens, and that's already happening. And interestingly, also, I think it was mentioned earlier about the grid integration related issues. So that is something I think going forward, especially with respect to the RE target that we have in heavily harvested RE zones like in Rajasthan, where transmission constraints are increasingly becoming more and more challenging because it's difficult to match those timelines. It is in those places where I think we might have to come up with some new framework where we try to increase the utilization capabilities and the connectivity for project development does not become so much of a constraint. I mean, it is already becoming a constraint because of the way we have identified already 75 gigawatt of capacities under the 181.5 gigawatt transmission. RE plans for the third phase, and then there is another lot of more interest for similar capacities. Of course, developers rush to places like Rajasthan, land is available and there's good radiation zone, and then of course ISTS waiver is there. But then it's difficult for transmission to keep pace with that, and it is becoming sort of increasingly a constraint because they have an 6 gigawatt HVDC link which is still in the works, and that is not likely to see light of the day in another 3-4 hours. So that might put a lot of constraint on all the other connectivities that might be on offer, which means we have to, if we are moving down this line, then there are other aspects or other framework that we might have to think of trying to increase the availability of connectivity, especially in places like Rajasthan. Of course, there are other places in Karnataka and Andhra maybe where there's still a lot of scope. So I'll just rest my words here, and I wish Ayesha all the best. I know that there's no dearth of opportunity. I mean, as I can say, there's a whole spate of tenders coming in from SECI itself, from other REIAs, and from different, and also in terms of different optics frameworks. What the Fatehgarh RFS has done has certainly provided one framework, which will perhaps be replicated more and more in the coming days. So different states showing a lot of interest in coming up with their own tenders. But then also, going forward also, we have the 4,000 megawatt hours, the VGF scheme. So you will see more tenders on those lines coming, where the expecting agency might be SECI or maybe the SGBL. But you would see an entire state of RFS coming in the future. So I wish you all the best, and thank you, Ayesha.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prashant. May I request Ms. Devi Prasad to give a token of appreciation to Mr. Prashant. Sir, please come and
Thanks, Sushant, for supporting the industries as always and mentioning about the future opportunities. And Seki, anytime you need any inputs from the industry, where there is a platform to help you. Not taking much time, I invite Mr. Tejbrata Das, Manager Renewable Energy, NTPC Limited. NTPC floated multiple tenders on one of the PSUs who are driving energy storage. Please give a round of applause to invite Mr. Tejbrata. Please.
Well, good morning to everyone here. I hope we had a good tea and fantastic session by Prashant sir, who has always been insightful with the upcoming tenders and the overall trend that the market has seen in the past years that we have been for energy storage. And undoubtedly, we are all looking on an optimistic note with the GeoWinner tender being a market disruptor and giving us much hope for the transcending and aggressive implementation of energy storage. So, talking about the large-scale energy storage deployment, I think most of us know everything that has been happening in the market and what the previous speakers have been talking about. I'll just brush up the same things with some facts and figures. So, if we talk of the exact numbers by 2022, what we had in terms of energy storage, it was predominantly a PSP dominant market with around 4.7 of the 4.76 gigawatt implementation done. And if we talk of the National Electricity Plan 2022, the CEA estimates stop this number jumping by approximately 8 times in the next 5 years, and it could be having a 47 gigawatt by 2037 or so. So clearly, in fact, the policies, the enablers are all in place. It is just a matter of time. The market, which has the only single impediment of price which have been prevailing for so long, the estimates from multiple agencies which have been challenged. Right now, what we'll be seeing is confidence of the market in terms of price, and we'll surely be looking forward to a large-scale implementation. The estimates of 6,400 beds for 2024 is there, and we can certainly see, if I am to talk of the GeoWinner tender, we are already in place. It's a 6.5 crore per megawatt kind of figures. So the trajectory that we have been expecting is already arrived. Now, talking about the key applications, for us as a utility or as generator, we primarily have it for the peak saving or peak shifting or the profile management for our RTC and FDRE tenders. For transmission utilities, it is for black startups, transmission and infrastructure optimization, the rate frequency and voltage control, and for the distribution end, we will be requiring it for the electric mobility per se and peak load management. So the applications, depending upon the applications, we have had a good number of tenders in the past, and this is a brief of it. Depending on the peak power supply, undoubtedly was for a single cycle or double cycle requirement. If I have to quote, this is a single cycle requirement with a quota. That is the reason you are finding the tariffs much more beyond the level of on an average of 8 rupees per unit. Whereas RTC and FDRE, we have a, if you take a general profile or a product mix of RTC or FDRE, it hardly accounts for 5 to 10% of the overall product mix. So that is the reason the PSP has been a much favorable thing in the RTC and FDRE tender. So as we are talking about the application of cable technology, the RTC and FDRE has a requirement of a long duration or medium duration energy dispatch. So PSP having a much more flattened out profile, making up other blockwise availability requirements. That is why PSP and undoubtedly the battery cost was ranging around 10 to 11 rupees per kilowatt hour back then. So PSP was a favorite for the FDRE and RTC tenders. Whereas this is a condition of Duskod being converted to cadmium curve for the California CATSO requirements. I don't think so we are going to have it anywhere in India in the longer term also, but still this is just an indicator of what higher RE penetration can do to the grid. And in that, if you see the 4-hour requirement or 6-hour requirement, our battery storage is the best possible solution to address the ramp-up response or the impromptu requirements of the grid. Of late, the challenges that we have been talking about, that battery storage is only good for a 4-hour storage or so. Fluence has certainly been a disruptor in Australian market with a 8-hour lithium battery storage project. Sodium ion BMV has come up with a NAT series, which is having a energy density which is quite suitable to the requirement of the utility industry of the 180 to 200 kilowatt per kg, watt hour per kg. And indeed, zinc batteries are also doing a considerable good development. So that can be one of the future technologies to come up forward. And indeed, my friends over here from IndiGrid and supposedly someone from Lensol, I would give a congratulations to them for putting up much optimism and bringing the best at a parity for PSP. And now we can be very much optimistic that the battery storage can be a good competitor for the pump storage and can be the next entry into the FDRE segment also. So to conclude, we already have the envelope in place. We have the ESO obligations. We have the FDRE guidelines requirements mandating for minimum 5% of energy storage consideration. We have the VGF coming in. We have the PLI schemes coming in. We have the ESS being considered for the HPDAM segment of the exchange. So all in all, I have, being from the utility industry, I have much more faith with the usage of energy storage as a arbitration, in the arbitration point of view, because with the increasing penetration, we are going to have a typical FDRE or RTC project has approximately surplus energy ranging from 15% to 35 to 40 odd percentage. So, as we see more and more of the transition from the clean vanilla solar and wind tenders to FDRE regime, we will be looking into more and more surplus being injected into the grid. And so, when there is a more and more surplus in the grid, more and more surplus available for the exchange to take off, the price is going to go down for the energy available. So, when we are seeing energy storage as a ancillary service, indeed the market is going to pick up in that format. This is my opinion. It might differ from anyone else in the room, but yes, thank you for that.
Okay. I invite the brother, please, sorry to recall you. Please join the dais. There is a token of appreciation for you. And I invite the next speaker, Mr. Rupam Raja, Chief Commercial Officer, Fluence, to join the dais.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I know we are way above time, so I'll try to gain some time back for you. So let's get things started. So my name is Rupam Raja. I'm an Fluence. You can go to the next slide. Oh, it's here. So Fluence, we built India's first 10 megawatt storage plant in Rohini about 5 years ago. So that's been operating. It got to 5 years in February this year. It's inside a building. I hope many of you have had a chance to visit that project. And since then, over the last 5 to 6 years, I've been talking about what batteries can do and what are the applications and talking about what batteries have done around the world. I'm glad there are other people today who spoke about that, and I can talk a little bit about what does it take to actually execute one of these projects in India, having earned so much experience in India, and I'll talk about that real quick. But just a little bit about Fluence. We have over 8.7 gigawatts of storage projects around the world. We have been doing storage projects since 2009 in a previous avatar. And in terms of projects, there were 225 discrete projects. In terms of projects that we have under service contracts, we've got 6.8 gigawatts. And then one key piece I want to mention is, very soon the projects that we are building in India, they'll have to participate in the market, right? They'll be contracted, but you'll always have spare capacity and you want to use it more optimally, so you will have to transact these batteries in the market. And at that point, you will need a software that can read the signals in the market and then decide to charge and discharge the battery in the most efficient manner, make the most money for the developer, right? So we have the Mosaic software, so we have over 11.9 gigawatts of projects that are running on the Mosaic software. So that's about Fluence. We will jump straight into projects now. So, like I said, I will try to focus on what does it take to land these projects, what does it take to build them, what does it take to connect them so that you can start making money from these projects, right? That would be the focus of my 15 minutes today. So we have two of the largest projects. I know Prashant, got the first largest project tag. And we were close behind, but we are right behind it. We are on the heel, and we will have the largest project tag soon. So we have a project that's 25 megawatt 4 hours. The pictures that you see are from the site. That's being built right now. We hope to commission that in the third quarter of this year. And then we have the 75 megawatt 2 hour project, which is in North Karnataka. That is good to go. It's commissioned, from our point of view, it's just waiting for some evacuation infrastructure to get ready. So that should get done as well in the next, weeks, if not months. Point being that we are delivering some of the largest projects in APAC. In fact, if you had to find a project this big, you'll have to go as south as Australia. If you don't cross the Chinese wall, because I think there's some bigger projects in China. But these are big projects by any standard. So I'll talk about, what does it, again, what does it take to execute one of these projects, right? And I'll tell you, it's a new asset class. It is nothing else. It is like nothing else that you have procured before, right? And that's something that is very important to keep in mind. It will surprise you. You will think I'll contact within a month. It's probably taking 6 months. And if you can do it quicker, then you have a very good legal and a business, negotiation team. But it always takes long. It's like I said, it's like nothing else you bought before, right? So, first point I want to make is about the software. I think we are approaching battery in India as a hardware procurement. It's actually a software play, right? And when we talk about what is the closest analogy to a battery storage plant, we say a computer. It's like building a computer. I mean, if you don't have software, you don't build a computer, right? So that is the closest analogy. That's why I'm stressing on the fact that the software is a very important component. The other thing to keep in mind is degradation, right? This battery is going to degrade, right? And there is so much quality in batteries. There are, even at the top tier battery companies, they are binning those batteries as they come off the assembly line into like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, all based on quality, based on their voltage current ratings, right? So there's a lot of variability. So you have to make sure that you get a degradation curve, and a degradation curve that's going to hold for the duration of the project, right? Then the third point is about where do you meter the system, right? So it's not about what your inverter gives you, it's not about what your module gives you, it's not about what your rack gives you. The most important thing is what does your battery give you at that point of metering, right? And that's really the most important thing. It's not about discrete pieces and how well they do, it's about bringing it all together, right? Safety measures, I think we all know about that. I mean, we've seen instances of safety issues in batteries, whether it's electric vehicles, whether it's stationary storage. Again, a very important criteria to be kept in mind. And then the last thing I would suggest is just visit a site. Just go see a battery storage site so you can get an appreciation of what the hell it is that I'm getting into. So I think for developers and people who are looking to write a check, buy a battery, install one, or build one, get your organization familiar with what it takes to procure a battery storage system. The next bit is on the bankability. So I'll tell you, the banker is never going to show up when you're talking to your end customer or talking to the vendor. If you're the developer, or if you're talking to the developer, if you're the vendor, the bankers are nowhere in the picture. But I'll tell you, they will eventually get in the picture. All these projects are known finance, and they have the most number of questions, right? And I would say, when I said 6 months, I would say about 3 to 4 months you're going to spend just answering the bank questions, because it's a consortium that's quite a bit more banks, and their lawyers, and their consultants. So there'll be lots of questions, right? They're trying to make sure that the best will perform as it shows up in the financial model. Because they're making sure that you have the revenue to pay off their loans, right? So they want to make sure that the best is going to work just like how you said it's going to work. That should work. Right, so they're going to ask you for operational data history. They're going to ask you for how are you going to execute this. They're going to ask you how are you going to source these batteries, how are you going to source the inverters, how do you secure them, will you make sure that you get them. They'll ask you who's going to execute it, what's their experience, how many people, show me a raw chart, and all those questions they're going to ask you, right? They're going to ask you 20 years, 25 years, what's your strategy to get the warranty on this done, how do you make sure that the warranty gets done on time, and if there's a firm capacity, how are you going to augment this? One question that you will not be able to answer is that if you have to augment a battery in, say, 2032, and what price would you augment it? Right? So all these questions are going to come up. So keep that in mind, because these are the questions that the banks are going to ask you. We may not be thinking of them today, but we will when you bring the bankers on board. So last couple of years, especially after COVID, supply chain has been a big concern. I think it's going to it's getting better, but it's kept us awake at night for the last 3 years or so. And one of the reasons is because these batteries, right? The largest customers for these battery OEMs, the ones, the chemistry people who make batteries, the largest customers for them are the electric vehicle people, right? So they always prioritize that. If you're calling them and some electric vehicle people are calling them and they're constrained on time, guess whose call they're going to pick? They're going to pick the electric vehicle guy's call, right? So that is something that is the beginning of the problem in the supply chain, right? But you can get into all kinds of issues. And And I'll just name a few, geopolitical, right? So what's happening in the Red Sea, what happened in, with the Taiwan Straits, right? All of those issues are going to have an impact, again, depending on where you're sourcing your batteries from, right? You're going to run into raw material shortages. We did. We are coming out of it. Maybe there's too much raw material now, but there was a time when we were running into raw material shortage, right? Supply bankruptcy, right? So we've been doing this for 15 years, and I can tell you we had suppliers that went bankrupt, right? So you have these 20-year projects, and a lot of OEMs went under. So we learned that, the hard way. So again, that's something that to keep in mind. Now, if you consider all of those supply chain threats, right? With all that known, you have to find a vendor who's going to secure the price of your components. They're going to secure the supply of your components, so make sure that you'll be able to get the number of modules, the number of racks, the number of inverters that are needed for your projects. They'll be able to get them certified, so they'll all be certified, so you can eventually pass the test when the CA comes calling and does the testing. Make sure the project's going to it's going to pass the test. You have to make sure they have the ability to deliver these projects, right? People, you're going to need commissioning engineers, system engineers, design engineers, right? Make sure that you have all those people lined up so that they can commission this project on time. And then, as you're executing it, you're going to, look, things are going to go wrong, okay? Everything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? You just have to make sure that you are equipped and staffed and you have the right support needed to then make sure that this goes as smooth as it can go. Look, it's not going to go smooth. It's going to be jerky, but you just have to make sure that you are prepared for those worst case scenarios. The third point I want to make is about the integration, right? So I think we have to understand, that this is a complex integration, right? It's not, I have a, and I'm simplifying it, I have a screwdriver or a spanner and I can integrate. That's not what this battery storage is, right? There are multiple levels of integration, right? So the first level of integration is in the enclosure itself, right? So you have the enclosure, it can be a 40-foot container, it can be a 20-foot container, it can be a cube like what our architecture is. You have to integrate the batteries in it, you've got to integrate the safety equipment in it, you've got to integrate all your safety, the thermal management equipment in it, all your communication systems, right? So that's level 1 integration, right? And then you take this box, which is like a satellite now, which can, kind of self-independent, put all electronics on it. You've got to now integrate that with the PCS, right? So that's your level 2 integration. If you look at the level 3 integration, you've got to now take this enclosure with the PCS and connect that to the operating system, right? So now you have at least these 3 components talking to each other with the help of this operating system, right? And then the 4th level integration is you integrate this system to the grid, right? And basically you can start getting signals from the grid, you can read the frequency in the grid, etc., right? And then the last bit is where you can kind of proactively input a schedule into the system, right? So you can tell the battery when to charge, how many megawatts, when to discharge, how many megawatts, and you can do this autonomously, or you can manually do it. I mean, all those, that's like the 5th level of integration that you got to think about, right? So that was like the next point. And then I'm going to the last bit, about operating this battery for the next 20-25 years, right? So these requirements are generic, you all know it, right? I just kind of differentiate it because you have a standalone project where you don't have the luxury of having like the pooling substation for the solar wind where the battery is connected. A battery may be connected directly to the grid, right? So versus, a solar wind kind of a project where the battery connects at a lower voltage. Right? But the requirements are the same, right? You have life cycle, you have 2 cycles for X number of years, you have an RTE, round-trip efficiency requirement, say 85%. You have the availability requirements, say 95-97% for the system as a whole, not individual components, but the system as a whole at that point of metering, right? And then you have degradation requirement, which is how will this battery degrade, at what point do you have to bring augmentation that brings its capacity back up. That may or may not be a requirement, right? So these are the kind of conditions in that PPA that you have to design the battery for, right? And you have to plan for that because this battery is going to do this for the next 25 years every day, and it's complicated, right? So what are the things that you have to keep in mind? So you got to think of performance guarantees. Like again, think of the banker, right? The banker saying, will it be available 95% of the time? You got to make sure that that is something that you plan for, right? And then things are going to break down, right? So you got to make sure that there's going to be a reactive component. There's people who will be addressing the reactive issues. There's a separate group of people who will be dealing with the schedule issues. I think you have to do quarterly, monthly, 6 monthly, annually, right? In India, we are realizing, like, for example, our project in Rajasthan, right? We are realizing that what we were doing in 6 months elsewhere in the world, we're going to do it every month, given the different ambient conditions, right? So, for example, cleaning the filters. I mean, I got to do it every month in Rajasthan. We never thought that we will have to do that, right? So those are the kind of things you want to learn. Right? So you want to have a field service support structure. So again, people on the ground, people at the regional level, people at the national level. How do you escalate this? And then you have some experts, right, who will know the software bit. Somebody knows the battery software. Somebody knows the EMS. Somebody knows the inverter software, right? You have to, and your buck stops with these top expert guys, right? So when things go really bad, how do you escalate to this guy? There's one guy who knows answers to all those questions, which will not arise on a regular basis, but they could arise, right? You have to plan for all of that, right? And then one key thing is 24/7. So look, a lot of these problems over time will become predictable, right? You know this is what's wrong, and this is how you fix it, right? As long as you have that knowledge, that tribal knowledge of when things go wrong, what do you do, right? So these are things that you can actually deal with easily over a phone call, as long as the person on the other end has all that legacy data, has a way to query it and seek answers, and then has you on the phone. So many of your problems you'll be able to address them over a phone call as well, right? So we'll make sure that there is a 24/7 support. Every problem, you don't want people rushing to the site, right? That's not something you want to do. When you don't have the data, though, that's what people will point you towards, but it's just not workable. I mean, you can try it. If it works, you can always let me know, but I think the better thing is that compile all the data and let somebody service you over a phone call. Right? And then the next thing is spares pool, right? So I'm not talking about commissioning spares. I'm talking about spares that you are going to need for the duration of the project to keep it available, say, 95% of the time, right? So every time there's an outage, you want to be able to go to a stock room, pick a spare part, and install it and keep your system going, right? So you have to make sure that you're counting your spares from that point of view. Because if the part is not in the stock room, and you have to go back somewhere else to get that part, it's going to impact your performance guarantees, right? And the last bit is augmentation. And I think I talked about that already. How do you price it? Hopefully it keeps trending downward, which it will. But you have to plan. You need some certainty around how many megawatts you want to augment, and at what point, and an indication of what it's going to cost you. And then you got to plan for it, right? Because every augmentation will be a mini project in itself, right? So you have a 150 megawatt hour project, and you have a 10 megawatt augmentation every 5 years. You got to plan for that 10 megawatt as a mini project every 5 years, right? So that's also something that will actually consume a lot of your time from a planning point of view, procurement, engineering, and all of that, right? So you'll be doing these mini projects every 5 years if augmentation is part of the strategy. And that was my last slide.